Welcome back once again to the Hillside, guys. Today, let's talk about what you can still plant in June. Okay, so early in the spring, everybody has spring fever. You have grow lights, you have your windowsills filled up with plants. You're doing everything you can to get a head start on the season. You get everything in the ground. Everything's growing great, just like this awesome heirloom squash right here. And then what? Then it's June, and you run out of things to plant. Everything's in the garden. Does that mean it's time to stop planting seeds? Absolutely not. So let me take you into the garden right here and show you what else you can still plant in June here in Zone 6B, 7A. So let's go check it out. Alright, so we're inside the garden here, and as you can tell, everything is growing just amazing. This corn is shot up. We've had so much rain lately, it's been ridiculous. And I mean, everything is in full swing. So don't give up right now. Now is not the time to stop planting. And I'll tell you why. For succession, okay? Now, if you plant everything early in the spring and then just walk away, that's gonna be great. You're gonna have a great crop of some potatoes and your corn and your tomatoes and everything else that's growing here. It's all gonna get ripe all at one time. And then you have a huge harvest. You have way too much. You can't even probably use all at once unless you probably try to can it or freeze it, something like that. So what I encourage you to do instead is to do what's called succession planting, okay? So what's that mean? As one crop is maturing and being taken out of the garden, something else is already ready to take its place, okay? Case in point, back here in the back, you can't really tell now because a couple episodes ago I showed you harvesting my humongous heads of broccoli. Well, they were along the back. All right, so as they were harvested, I re-amended the soil with some more compost and I added some corn and beans. Okay, so what I'm planning on doing is letting the corn grow up. It's an early maturing variety because it is a little bit later in the season, so do take that into consideration when planting later into the season, no matter where you're at. Okay, you make sure you have enough days to maturity. Okay, so you don't want to put a long season crop planting it in the middle of the growing season because you may or may not just have enough time for them to ripen. Okay, so do consider that. So what are some things that you can consider growing in June from seed, even this late in the season, depending where you're from? Here at 6B, 7A, we don't get frost to maybe late October, but the days really start getting cooler mid-October, so that kind of wraps up the growing season. So we're still a good 3.5 months away from really calling it a season, okay? So let's go ahead and talk about some things you can grow here in June. All right, so my number one crop to plant in June here in Zone 6B, 7A is without a doubt beans. Okay, now these are early bush Italian beans. They have a 50 days to harvest, which is very short amount of time as far as the growing season goes. Okay, so you get a amazing quick return on investment from planting the beans. You can grow these and eat them fresh. They freeze amazingly. That's great. You may want to avoid planting a long season bean or a bean that's going to take like a pinto or something, like maybe even a black bean that you're going to need to grow to full maturity, to let the plants dry out, and to harvest a dried bean. Okay, so I recommend planting fresh snap green beans in your garden here early in June. Now, something else you can plant, which is people may think they're related, but they're not. Asparagus beans or Chinese yard-long beans are sometimes called, which are actually not beans. Technically, they're more related to cowpeas or like in the black-eyed pea type family. And you might recognize these from like a Chinese buffet. They're always like stir-fried on the buffet. They're delicious, okay? Now, the reason why I wait until June to plant these is these are very much a warm, loving crop, okay? You plant these early in the season, they're not going to do well at all, okay? They're maybe not necessarily tropical, but they need the heat. So always plant these late as opposed to early. It says 80 days to maturity. With the heat and the moisture you have in the summertime, even though you're planting what you might think is a little bit later, they will catch up. Trust me, they will do much, much better in warm soil than cold, wet soil. Okay, so let's talk about some other things you can grow here in June. All right, so one crop that may surprise you that you can still start this late in the growing season are peppers. Okay, now hear me out. A lot of peppers like a habanero or your ghost peppers or some of the longer season bell peppers, you would not want to start right now because there's just not really enough time to grow. But these these early jalapenos. Now this is an early variety, which I again recommend. If you're starting seeds this late, make sure you find early maturing plants. Now, just as an experiment, I started some of these jalapeno seeds super late just to kind of see what the limit would be as far as starting late. Can you still get a harvest? So these were started on May 19th. Okay, it's now June 11th today, so not quite a month, but do check this out, like right down here. So these are the seedlings from the jalapenos, and there are 11 of these. There were 12. I think one was eaten by a slug or something, but this is just my experiment. And they've perked up well. They're growing nicely, so we'll definitely see how well they do grow. But I have no doubt they're going to produce plenty of jalapenos for me this year. So always have fun in the garden. Don't forget, every year is an experiment. Everything in the garden is an experiment. You're not guaranteed success. What happened last year may not work well this year. Okay, so have fun with it. You know, this package of seeds, if you really want to have some security, start some indoors early, plant the plants out, but save some for experimentation. Okay, and that's kind of what I'm leaning for on this experiment is, you know, we always spend so much time early in the spring growing things from seed. We're spending time watering and turning on and off grow lights. Is it really necessary? I mean, granted, if you have a short season, you have not the warmest climate, yes, you definitely need to start some things early, but I'm just kind of trying to test the limits here with this jalapeno experiment. So I'll definitely let you know how this experiment works out towards the later parts of summer and early fall as the peppers do ripen. So let's go ahead and check out something else over here that you may not consider growing in June that you should. Let's check this out, come on. All right, so another crop you can grow in June are potatoes. Now, yes, you can start your potatoes super early, just like I have here. Now, they're almost to the point that they're going to start being able to harvest. We've had some crazy storms come through, kind of knocked them all down, but the plants are still growing just great. And just as an added bonus, let's check out what's growing on right here. So check it out. I was looking here a little bit earlier, and if you're ever kind of curious to see how your potatoes are doing, so where were they at? Right here, guys. So check this out. See this right here? Now it's small. It's just slightly bigger than a golf ball, but that's way, no harm, no foul. You can, this method of, deep mulching with grass clippings growing your potatoes, you can pull them back if you wanted to. You could even harvest right now and put it back. No harm, no foul. But that being said, if you haven't already planted your potatoes, now's a great time. Plant them right now, early in June. Make sure you find the appropriate variety that's going to mature before it starts getting too cold, but you can still plant a mid-season crop of potatoes that are going to be ready for harvest in fall. And like I mentioned about succession planting, these are Yukon Gold. They'll be ready here within the next 30 days tops. Okay, usually first part of July, maybe even the very late part of June, when the plants start to kind of fade out, you're going to want to start harvesting your potatoes. You're going to get a large amount of potatoes all at once, okay, unless you selectively kind of harvest a couple here and there. But long story short, if you already have another row of potatoes growing, that by the time maybe you're starting to use these up, there towards the fall and maybe September, October for another large late season harvest, definitely consider growing potatoes. Now I know a lot of people want to grow warm weather crops, and potatoes are, maybe not the smartest choice depending where you live, but as long as in my experience you keep a deep mulch, keep the roots cool, keep them moist, they're going to do just fine even in the hottest parts of summer. At least where I live. So if you've grown potatoes in the middle of the summer before, leave a little comment down below. Let everybody else know what you did that helped you be successful. Now, right in front of you guys here, these are obviously zucchini plants, everyone's favorite plant to give away, right? But anyways, these plants are doing great. They're just now starting to put on flowers. Now, I like zucchini and I like squash. So now would be the perfect time, as these are flowering, to go ahead and get some more seeds in the ground. Because as these plants are going to put on a large flush of fruit all at once, well, they're not going to just produce all season long until the end of fall like a tomato or maybe a pepper would do. Okay, they're going to put on a large crop, and you're going to be basically pulling the plants up. Okay, so make sure you have something to take its place, whether it be more squash, things like that, or maybe just you're going to plant some more beans in its spot. Okay, always be thinking about the next crop in your garden. Try to maximize your entire growing season. So that being said, kind of zooming over here, as these peas right here, now I'm letting most of these kind of these are the snap peas, kind of growing past maturity, as I want these to be saved for seed collection. So I'm letting these kind of grow to full maturity to save the seeds for maybe a later in the fall planting. Okay, so that being said, make sure in the fall you leave some room, this little small trellis, or maybe you have a fence line or some chicken wire you want to kind of set up as a trellising thing to grow your peas in the fall. So make sure you leave space for that. Or think about maybe these tomatoes right here. Maybe they're a determinate variety. We're going to put on a flush of tomatoes, and then the plants are going to die. Okay, and then it's going to be pulled up. Think about what you're going to plant afterwards. Okay, so maximizing your growing season is very, very important. All right, guys. So planting in June, one last crop, and it may surprise you. It is corn. Okay, so a lot of corn takes a long season to grow. Okay, but as I mentioned, I have this corn growing. I just planted some new corn over there. Now these are faster maturing varieties. They're a little bit different. These are some blue ornamental type corn. Try to just kind of see how those grow. But always, 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 just keep trying. Okay, have fun with it. If you make sure you keep some notes. If you wrote down that on June 11th of 2022, I planted this variety of corn, and it never really quite reached maturity. Okay, you needed like an extra week, maybe 2 weeks. Well, the next year, make sure you start it before June 1st, okay? Or if maybe you had great success with, hey, I planted beans on June 15th last year, and I had a great harvest in the middle of August, or whenever it may be for wherever your climate, your growing season, and your location is at, just keep your notes, okay? You always keep trying to push the limits of how long you can plant some stuff, how early you can plant things, but more importantly, the more you do this, the more you're going to realize that there's no absolutes when it comes to gardening. Okay, so some years, maybe you want to get the old wives' tales that you need to have the corn in the ground by May 10th if you're never going to get a harvest of this much, or you don't plant tomatoes until after this date, or the second full moon of May is when you plant whatever, right? Well, you're never going to know unless you try. So always make sure you plant extra, plant some early, plant some in the mid-season, and even try planting some late, okay? There are plenty of ways for you to extend the growing season with row covers and hoops and things like this that we'll show you later in the fall about how to extend the growing season. But for right now, try to get your mind out of the mindset that you only plant early in the spring and then you walk away. Okay, that's the worst thing you can do. You're missing out on so many possibilities in the garden. So hopefully that helped you guys get some ideas of what you can grow here in June. Zone 6B, 7A, Mid-Atlantic, USA. It's a nice day out, guys. I hate for you to waste it not planting something. So once you go ahead and get out there, plant something, and let us know what you're growing down in the comments below. All right, guys, until next time, hopefully you're finding out some new things to grow, okay? Until then, we'll see you guys. Bye-bye.